A rich man hires a nanny to take care of his sick son, puts up cameras, and then finds out something shocking. The Cortez mansion looked big against the sky over Boston, and the setting October sun could be seen in its reflected windows. From his office on the top floor, Leonardo Cortez could see the city. There was a glass of whiskey on the wood table, but he hadn't touched it yet. His dark brown eyes were fixed on something far away, and his mind was wandering through the empty halls of his own life. He came back to the present when the door opened softly. Margaret walked in with a black folder in her hands. She had been his helper for more than 10 years. "Mr. Cortez, the CVs of the candidates you asked for," she said in a businesslike way. But Leonardo could tell she was worried. She knew too much about what was going on for her to be completely neutral. With his back to her, he asked, "How many this time?" 15. All of them have great references and have worked with kids who need extra care before. Leonardo took the folder out of his bag and quickly looked through the papers inside. On paper, every candidate looked great, but he knew better than anyone how looks could be deceptive. He told them, "Set up interviews with the top 3 for tomorrow. What happens next will shock everyone. But before we start, let's do something fun. Comment your location below. Let's see who's watching from the farthest place." "All right, let's begin." Margaret wasn't sure. Dr. Matthews called. "He keeps saying that Lucas needs to be stable. Every 2 months changing babysitters isn't." Leonardo spoke up, his voice as cold as the wind outside. "I pay Dr. Matthews to take care of my son's health, not to tell me how to run my house." Margaret knew when to leave because she nodded. She stopped at the door before leaving. "Lucas asked if you'd have dinner with him tonight." Leonardo's jaw tensed up because of a muscle. "I'm on a video call with investors in Tokyo." "Tell him that He stopped talking in the middle of a sentence because he remembered how disappointed his son always looked when he got another excuse. "Don't hold the meeting. I'll be there at 7. When Leonardo was by himself again, he opened the desk's top drawer and took out a picture. He could see Catherine smiling back at him in the picture. Her green eyes were as bright as Lucas's. Even though it had been 5 years since the accident, the pain was still very strong. Hearing Lucas's usual cough, and then the soft voice of Mrs. Peterson, the temporary nanny, came from downstairs. This year, she was the 5th. Leonardo knew he had to find a stable partner, but he was scared to think about giving his son to a stranger to care for. Lucas was watching a program about the ocean while wrapped in his favorite blanket in the living room. He ran down the marble stairs to find Lucas. Lucas smiled when he saw him, and Leonardo felt that tight feeling in his chest that he knew all too well. From the freckles on his nose to his golden hair, his son looked just like Catherine. "Dad, are you having dinner with me tonight?" "Yes, sir. Let's get that pizza you want." Lucas's eyes got bright, but then he shook because of a cough. Mrs. Peterson quickly came over with the inhaler, and Leonardo could only watch in helplessness as his son fought to breathe. It was times like these that made him realize how important it was to protect the only person who still mattered to him. After putting Lucas to bed, Leonardo went to his office and turned on the screens that showed every room in the house. It was something he did every night to make sure everything was okay and his son was safe. He would interview them tomorrow, and one of them would be picked to join the world he had created that was always locked down. One name, Isabella Martinez, stood out to him on the list of CVs. Her references were perfect, and she had a lot of experience working with sick kids. But there was something about her picture that made him stop. The other candidates' faces looked like they were practicing, but her smile was real. It reached her eyes. When the phone rang, it broke his train of thought. It was Richard, his lawyer. "Leonardo, I got the paperwork for the new nanny. Do you want me to add the same terms about privacy?" "All of them. Add one about the cameras as well. You know that can scare off good candidates, don't you?" Richard gave a warning. Leonardo took another look at the picture of Catherine. Anyone who has nothing to hide won't have a problem with surveillance. After getting off the phone, he went back to Isabella's CV. He will meet her in person tomorrow. There was also something in his gut that told him this interview would be different from the others. He was interested in her, maybe because of her impressive skills or the sincerity in her picture. Leonardo Cortez wasn't used to being interested in other people. When Isabella Martinez walked into the meeting room at Cortez Enterprises, it was quiet. The room's dark mood was broken up by the big windows that let in lots of natural light. And even though her heart was racing, she kept a calm stance while wearing a simple navy blue outfit. Leonardo Cortez stood on the other side of the glass table and looked at her carefully. His sharp eyes, which were trained to judge people, picked out her soft but firm hands, her steady eye contact that didn't seem scared, and most of all, the calmness that seemed to come from her. He started, "Ms. Martinez," but his voice was quiet. "Your resume looks great. 6 years of experience caring for kids with special needs, a specialty in pediatric nursing, and 5 great letters of recommendation. It's almost too good to be true." Isabella gave a small smile. "Mr. Cortez, I learned early on that nothing is perfect. I can't promise perfection, but I will do my best and be honest with you." He was surprised by her answer. Most candidates would have rushed to show they were qualified by making promises they had already thought about. He leaned back in his chair and asked, "Tell me about your last experience." "For 3 years, I took care of little William. The man had cystic fibrosis. Those were hard but satisfying years." She paused, and Leonardo saw sadness in her eyes as she said, "Unfortunately, William died 6 months ago. That's when I knew I needed some time to deal with my loss." "And what makes you think you're ready to take on another complex case?" he asked Leonardo. I answered, "Because grief taught me compassion, not fear. Your son deserves someone who understands that caring goes beyond administering medication and following protocols." Leonardo got up and went to the window. "Ms. Martinez, I need to tell you the truth. Professional skills alone are not enough for this job. There are security cameras all over the house, so you won't have much privacy. A lot of people think it's too intrusive. I get why you want to keep your son safe, Mr. Cortez. I think I would do the same thing if I were you." She took a long pause. "But I hope that, in time, you'll realize that trust is built through actions, not surveillance." He turned around and stared at her very hard. "Are you questioning me, Miss Martinez?" "No, sir. As I said at the start of this talk, I'm being honest." The room was very quiet. Margaret took a deep breath as she watched the conversation from the doorway. It had been 15 years since she had seen someone so quietly question her boss. "Would you like to meet Lucas?" Even Leonardo was surprised when he asked. Lucas was finishing up his physiotherapy lesson on the 4th floor of the mansion when they walked in. When he saw his father, his green eyes lit up, but it was Isabella who caught his attention. "You must be Lucas," she said as she walked up to him with a smile. "I hear you're a fan of documentaries about the ocean." The boy's face got brighter. "Do you like them too?" "I love them. Every year, humpback whales sing different songs." Lucas laughed, which stopped Leonardo in his tracks. That laugh hadn't come from him in weeks. Isabella talked to Lucas for an hour about coral reefs, abyssal seas, and her time as a worker at an aquarium. Leonardo noticed how she talked about breathing exercises while they were talking, and Lucas didn't even realize he was being treated. Lucas called out, "Dad," as Isabella walked. "Away to get water. She's different from the others." Leonardo gave a serious nod. "Yes, she is." Later, Margaret came in with a cup of coffee and joined Leonardo in his office while he read the job contract again. "The other candidates are still waiting, sir." He answered, "Cancel the interviews," and didn't take his eyes off the paper. "Miss Martinez starts tomorrow." Margaret wasn't sure. "Are you sure?" "When we talked, she was very honest." He raised his head. "That's exactly why. Lucas needs someone who won't be afraid to tell the truth, even if it means sometimes having to face me." That night, Leonardo stopped to listen to the recording of Isabella's talk with Lucas as he checked the cameras one last time. There was a mix of business and friendliness in the way she talked to his son. He couldn't ignore the real love that she showed him. Richard had sent the contract to Ms. Martinez, and his phone buzzed with the message. She signed it and sent it back already. "Commences tomorrow at 7 a.m. Leonardo looked at the picture of Catherine that was on his desk. He spoke in a low voice. What would you think of her, my love? Catherine always said that eyes don't lie, and that was the answer we got. And Isabella Martinez's eyes told him something he couldn't lie about. Leonardo gave himself a moment of hope by turning off the cameras. He thought he might have found someone who could bring light into Lucas's life and into the house as a whole, which had been dark for a long time. There was a light mist in the grounds of the Cortez mansion when dawn came. Isabella showed up on time at 7 a.m. with a simple bag and a small item wrapped in bright paper. Margaret met her in the foyer, where her high heels echoed on the marble floor. Margaret led her up the stairs and said, "Mr. Cortez is video conferencing, but he left detailed instructions about Lucas's routine. The list of medications, schedules, and emergency contacts is in his room." Walking down the hall on the second floor, they stopped in front of a door that had glowing phosphorescent stars on it. Margaret was unsure about opening it at first. "Ms. Martinez, Lucas had a rough night. Whenever the weather changes, it makes it hard for him to breathe." Isabella nodded to show that she got it. "May I see the records from last night? That would help me figure out how he breathes." Lucas was having a hard time sleeping in the room. A soft, steady beep came from the heart monitor next to his bed. Isabella walked up quietly and looked at the vital signs with old eyes. She said in a whisper, "Good morning, little navigator." As Lucas began to wake up, the boy's pale face lit up with a faint smile as his eyes slowly opened. "You really came," he said in a raspy voice. "Of course I came. I also brought you something special." The colorful box was given to him. Lucas carefully took it out of the box and saw a small star projector inside. "Wow, it's like having the whole world in my room," Isabella said with a smile. "I thought we could make our own ocean of stars here. But first, how about a nutritious breakfast to regain your energy?" Through the security cameras on the other side of the house, Leonardo saw what was going on. He was interested in the way Isabella moved around the room and how easily she kept Lucas busy while checking his vital signs in secret. During the morning, Isabella set up a gentle pattern. During nebulizer treatments, she turned breathing exercises into games and told stories. She also got Lucas to take all of his medicine without complaining. During lunch, Leonardo chose to show up out of the blue. Lucas was happily eating a colorful soup that wasn't on his normal menu when he found him sitting at the kitchen table. He raised an eyelid and asked, "What kind of soup is that?" He asked with an eyebrow raised. "It's my special recipe," Isabella said, not giving up. "According to medical rules, it's low in sodium and high in nutrients. The fresh greens are the key." Lucas was very excited and raised his spoon. "Try it, Dad. It tastes like medicine, but it's like magic." Leonardo thought about taking the spoonful his son offered for a moment before he did. He was shocked by how good it tasted, really tasty. "Ms. Martinez, can we talk in private?" Daniel shut the door to his office. "I appreciate your initiative, but any changes to Lucas's diet need to be approved first. No offense meant to Mr. Cortez, but the soup meets all nutritional needs." She handed over a thorough sheet and said, "This is the whole composition. Plus, I've seen that Lucas doesn't want to eat. Changing food into something he enjoys might help him get better." Leonardo looked over the paper, trying to find mistakes. He didn't find any. Isabella went on, "There's something else I need to talk about. Lucas said he wanted to see the garden. Now that the weather is getting better, he could use a few minutes of morning sun." "Absolutely not. The outside air can, under controlled conditions. It can make his immune system stronger," Isabella said. "Isolating him completely from the world won't protect him forever." Then there was a tense silence. Leonardo was torn between his need to be in charge and the sense in which her words made sense. "1 week," he finally said. "Give me positive results in a week, and I'll consider your suggestions about outside activities." After Lucas went to sleep that night, Isabella was going through her notes when she came across a picture he had made. It was of 3 stick figures, one big, one small, and one medium-sized, all smiling under a sky full of stars. Hey, Leonardo had spent the day going to meetings and watching the cameras. The next morning, he found the drawing on his desk with a note that said, "Mr. Cortez, Lucas has a heart bigger than his room and dreams bigger than his limitations. During the drawing today, he talked about how nice it would be to one day see the stars for real. Allowing small, well-thought-out risks is sometimes the best way to protect yourself. With due respect, Isabella Martinez, he leaned back in his chair and looked longingly at the drawing. He kept thinking about Catherine's words. Love without freedom is a gilded cage, my love. For the first time in years, he let himself think about whether his efforts to protect Lucas weren't actually making it less likely for him to live. He watched Isabella set up the star projector on the monitor, making a private world on Lucas's room ceiling. Leonardo hadn't seen Lucas's eyes shine with such happiness in a long time as he laughed and pointed to the stars. Leonid thought that maybe it was time for him to learn to loosen up a bit. There were, however, big changes beginning to take hold. The most obvious thing was Lucas's smile, which could be heard in the hallways that had been quiet before. While looking through the cameras, Leonardo noticed that his son seemed stronger and more active, even though his condition made that hard for him. When Leonardo saw on the monitor that Lucas was having a breathing problem on a very clear morning, he had to cancel an important meeting. He quickly went to his son's room, but Isabella was already in charge, and her confidence made him silent. "Take a deep breath with me, Captain," she whispered as she sat behind Lucas on the bed and helped him breathe. "Do you remember the story about the diver? Let's take it easy as we go to the top." Lucas leaned against her and squeezed her arms as he watched the beat of her breathing. Leonardo stood in the doorway, behind them both but unseen, and watched as they were alone with each other. Isabella went on. "All right. Tell me 3 things you see." He took a deep breath. "My ocean book, the star projector, and a picture of my mom." He could feel his heart beating fast. Catherine's picture, always smiling at her son, who looked so much like her, was on the nightstand next to the bed. "Great. 2 things you can touch. The blanket and the chain belong to you." With a smile, Isabella let Lucas play with the small charm that looked like an anchor that she always wore. "Great. What can you smell?" "The chamomile tea you make." As time went on, the situation ended, leaving Lucas tired but stable, as a mother would. Isabella tucked him in when he finally fell asleep. She was shocked to see Leonardo when she turned around. "Mr. Cortez, I'm sorry I missed you. How long have you been using this method on him?" "The grounding method?" "Since the 2nd week. Focusing on the senses helps keep people from panicking during crises." Leonardo showed a rare sign of weakness by running his hand through his hair. "Why? Did they not tell me?" "It's in the daily report I send you," she said in a soft voice. "Last week's report, page 3, paragraph 2. He remembered the paper that he had only quickly glanced over because he was too busy with mergers and acquisitions. He felt guilty all the time. "Mr. Cortez." Isabella thought for a moment before going on. "Could I make an idea?" He agreed and kept looking at his sleeping son. "Lucas needs his dad just as much as he needs his medicine. Your presence is healing in a way that no other treatment can match. I have to run a business," he said to protect himself, but his voice didn't sound like he really meant it. She told him, "And you have a son to love. Let me show you something." Isabella took out a folder that she kept in order in her bedroom. "These are the signs of life for Lucas. Take note of how much the numbers improve when you are there." She pointed to a part. "His oxygen saturation stayed the same for hours yesterday while you were having dinner together." Leonardo looked at the line and saw the pattern right away with his analytical eyes. The records were in her hand. "Why do you keep such detailed records?" he asked Leonardo, as Isabella answered, "Because care isn't just giving medicine, Mr. Cortez. It's about understanding every aspect that affects his well-being." That afternoon, Leonardo scrapped all of his plans for the first time in years. He let himself spend hours with Lucas, listening to him talk about the things he had found at sea, the stories Isabella had told him, and his dream of seeing the ocean for real one day. Through the security cams, Isabella quietly watched as the father and son talked to each other. She smiled softly as she did so. In the monitor room, Margaret went up to her. The helper said, "This is the first time I've seen him like this since Catherine left." I answered, He's afraid of losing Lucas so much that he forgets to live sometimes. How did you manage to convince him? I didn't. I just showed him that you can love and protect someone at the same time. After Lucas went to sleep that night, Leonardo found Isabella making the chamomile tea his son loved in the kitchen. Miss Martinez. He held his breath. Isabella, please. With a small smile, she told him he was wrong. Isabella, he said again and again. Thanks. For today and for everything else. She smiled again, with the same real smile that had caught his eye during the first interview. Lucas is a really cool kid, Mr. Cortez. He deserves to do well. He doesn't just need to stay alive. Leonardo took a sip of his tea and breathed in the soft scent. Catherine used to say something like that. It had been years since he had freely talked about his late wife with anyone. The quiet that followed wasn't awkward. It was full of understanding between everyone. Hey, Leo did something he had never done before that night, before going to sleep. He turned off the cams in Lucas's room. He understood that some things should be felt with the heart instead of being watched on screens. When Isabella finished her 2 months of work, autumn was turning the gardens of the house golden. Things were back to normal, and even Leonardo was starting to loosen up on his strict security rules. But an unplanned finding was about to break up the peace they had built. Isabella knocked over an old folder while sorting some papers in Leonardo's office because he asked her to on a very busy afternoon. As she picked up the papers that were all over the place, she saw something that stopped her in her tracks. A report from the cops. It was about Catherine Cortez's death in the crash. Usually, she would have put it away right away to protect her boss's privacy. One line, though, stood out to her. Strange events surrounding the loss of the brake system. What are you doing? She was shocked by Leonardo's voice. He was in the hallway, and the look on his face showed that he was angry, but not outburst. Mr. Cortez, I'm sorry. The briefcase fell, and I... Get out, he said in a cold voice. Please, let me explain. Get out. The sound of the scream went through the walls and made Isabella move back. She found Lucas in the hallway. His eyes were wide with worry. He asked in a soft voice, "What happened to Dad?" She forced a comforting smile and said, "Nothing, darling. Sometimes, adults just need a moment alone." She tried to look calm as she led Lucas to his room, but her heart was racing. After many hours, when he finally fell asleep, Isabella found a letter in his bag. There was a big check and a note inside that said, "Your services are no longer required." She didn't get her things together and leave like she was supposed to. She went to Leonardo's office instead. He was sitting in the dark with a half-full whiskey glass in his hand. She told him, "You can't fire me." Leonardo looked up in shock. "Excuse me. Tomorrow Lucas has a very important meeting. We start water training next week. He has to give a talk about the whale project in 3 days. I'm not going to leave him in the middle of this. You've crossed every line." "No, Mr. Cortez. Take a deep breath," she said. "You've built so many walls that you've forgotten there are people on the other side, including your son. Don't you dare mention Lucas. Every day he asks about his mom." She asked, "Do you know what he wants to know most?" If she loved him, because his dad never talks about her. Don't share your thoughts. Never enough. When Leonardo stood up quickly, he dropped his glass. "You don't know anything about loss." "I know more than you think," she said in a soft voice. "I lost more than one case before William. Each loss has taught me that keeping quiet doesn't help. It makes things worse." There was a dead silence in the room. Leonardo stumbled to the window, and the stress in his back made it stiff. "It was my fault," he finally said in a whisper. "Catherine wanted to go to Lucas's concert. It was busy for me because of a big merger. It was her choice to go alone, even though I said I'd send the car. If I had gone," he lost his voice, "or would you have lost them both?" Isabella ended in a soft voice. There were tears in Leonardo's eyes as he turned around. "The report. People thought there was sabotage going on. Someone who wants to beat me. It was my fault that Catherine died." His voice was almost whisper-like. "She died because someone committed a terrible crime." Isabella told him, "It's not your fault." "How can you be so sure?" Because I can see that you look out for Lucas. How you'd give up everything for him. The man I. When she realized what she had said, she stopped right away. Leonardo also saw it. He looked right into her eyes. Miss Martinez. She whispered, "I'm sorry," and turned to leave. That was inappropriate. Isabella. He called her. Only the second time since she got there that he had used her first name. Please stay. In doubt, she put her hand on the doorknob. Lucas needs you, he said next. And maybe I do too. A scream came from Lucas's room at that very moment. When they got there, the boy was crying and sitting up in bed. Mommy, he cried out. I dreamt about Mommy. Leo thought about it for a moment, then sat down on the bed and grabbed his son. Do you want me to tell you about the day your mother took you to see the dolphins for the first time? Lucas's teary eyes got even bigger. It was the very first time his dad had ever talked about Catherine. Isabella quietly got up to leave, but Leonardo reached out and gently grabbed her wrist. Stay, he said. Please. So, in the early hours of that morning, a fresh start came together. The walls started to fall down for real. Leonardo told stories about Catherine, like how she loved to laugh, the sea, and life. Lucas fell asleep with a smile on his face because he finally learned more about the mother he lost so young. Isabella's unintentional confession made the Cortez house a little tense. Over the next few days, Leonardo went back and forth between uncomfortable closeness and over-the-top professional space. Even more troublesome, Lucas, who was very sensitive like a child, started to notice changes in the way his father and his caretaker interacted with each other. During treatment in the heated pool on a very cold November morning, Lucas chose to bring up the subject in his own unique way. Isabella, do you like my father? She wasn't ready for the question, and she almost dropped her air mattress. Yes, Lucas. Of course I do. Your dad is a good person, he said. Not like that. And his green eyes were full of wit. You like him like your mom did. Yesterday at dinner, I saw you two looking at each other. She could feel her face getting hot. Lucas, the relationship between your father and me is strictly professional. But he smiles differently when you're around, like in the old photos with Mom. Margaret showed up at the edge of the pool before Isabella could answer. Ms. Martinez, Mr. Cortez requests your presence in the office immediately. It was hard for Isabella to calm down on the way to work. She saw Leonardo standing by the window. His tense body language showed that he was feeling uneasy. He said, "We need to set some limits." And he stood there. Mr. Cortez, if this is about what happened the other night. He finally turned around to face her and said, "It's about everything." When Lucas starts to care too much for someone, in terms of how things are changing, change isn't always bad. It is when it puts my son's well-being at risk. He ran his hand through his hair, which Isabella knew was a sign that he was nervous. Lucas's mom died. It's not safe for him to get close to someone who could leave at any time. Like all the other nannies you've dismissed. There was a hint of rebellion in her voice. Yes, that way was safer. Safe for whom, Mr. Cortez? Is it for Lucas or for you? After that, there was a heavy silence. Leonardo walked up to his desk and took out an old picture. Catherine and I met in high school. She was spontaneous and full of life, which is something I wasn't. I should learn how to dance in the rain, she told me, instead of just making shelters. Isabella moved forward, and she was right. Whenever I lost her, he said in a weak voice, I promised myself I would never let anyone become so important again, which means I will keep Lucas from feeling the same pain. But you're failing horribly at that, she said in a soft voice. He stared at her, shocked by how honest she was. It's not possible to control love, Mr. Cortez, so you're failing. Even if it means taking chances, your son needs to learn to love, trust, and connect with other people. Like you. The question was almost whispered, like anyone he chooses to let into his heart. Leonardo made them closer to each other. He looked right into her eyes. What about me, Miss Martinez? Is there anything I can do? Isabella's heart beat fast. The same as all of us. We can hide behind walls or... She didn't finish what she was saying. Leonardo was now even closer, and he put a light touch on her face with his hand. Time seemed to stop for a split second. "Dad." "Hi, Isabella." The spell broke when Lucas spoke. "Look what I managed to do in the pool." They quickly left, like teens who got caught in the act. Lucas ran into the office, drenched and happy. Margaret was right behind him, holding a towel. "Sorry, Mr. Cortez." He insisted on showing off how well he was swimming, Margaret said. First he looked at his son, then at Isabella, and finally at the picture of Catherine that was on his desk. He felt like 3 different worlds were coming together in his mind. Isabella got back to her professional self and told Lucas, "You need to dry off and warm up. Come on, before you catch a cold." Leo named after her as she led Lucas away. "Miss Martinez." She didn't turn around when she got to the door. "Luke will go to sleep tomorrow night. Do you want to continue talking?" "I'm not sure we should, Mr. Cortez." "Please." She was shocked by how vulnerable he sounded in his voice. "We need to sort this out for Lucas." She agreed softly. For Lucas. Even though she knew they were both lying. It wasn't only for Lucas. That's exactly what was wrong. He looked at the security cams one last time that night and stopped when he saw Isabella reading to Lucas before bed. While she read the story, his son leaned against her and smiled as she gave each character a different sound. His voice was low as he spoke to the picture of his late wife. "What should I do, Catherine?" The silence that followed was full of fears and options that were not said. But the talk that was supposed to happen never did. Boston was hit by an unexpected storm that brought rain, strong winds, and a very bad breathing problem in Lucas. The rapid drop in temperature and the humidity made him have one of the worst attacks he had ever had. Isabella and Leonardo couldn't sleep in the boy's room because they were scared. They each dealt with their fears in their own way. She kept up the appearance of calmness so she could give him medicine and check his vital signs. He moved around the room like a cat in a cage, calling doctors in a panic, and then calmly hanging up the phone. Isabella whispered as she looked at the monitor, "His heart rate is too fast. We need to calm him down." He said, "I've already called the ambulance," and his face turned pale with fear. "No," she answered firmly. "Going to the hospital in this storm will make his condition worse. Believe me." The soft glow of the star projector was the only light in the room, but they looked at each other. Lucas gasped in the space between them, and the sound of a short fight for air hurt. "Mr. Cortez," she said in a low voice, "please sit down." "What?" "Get on the bed. Lean back against the pillows." When he wasn't sure, she kept saying, "Please." Leonardo followed, even though he didn't want to. After that, Isabella put Lucas in his dad's arms so that his back was against Leonardo's chest. "Now take a deep breath with me. Do it slowly and deeply," Isabella told them. Lucas would pick up on Leonardo's beat and try to follow it. They stayed that way for a long time, breathing at the same time. Lucas's breathing slowly became steady, and his muscles relaxed against his father. "Tell me a story," he said in a weak voice. He stopped moving. Catherine was always the one who told the stories. "It was a stormy night," Isabella said as she sat down on the edge of the bed. "Like this one a lot. The water was rough, and a small boat was having a hard time." "No," Lucas said in response. "I want Dad to tell me." It was easy to see the fear in Leonardo's eyes. Isabella gently touched his hand for a short time, which made him feel better. He began slowly. It was a summer night. When your mom and I met, she was dancing on the college campus while it rained. I believed she was crazy. After that, the stories started to come naturally, along with memories that had been buried for a long time. Lucas listened with wide eyes that were heavy with sleep, but wouldn't close. He was determined not to miss a single detail. "She told me that life was too short to wait for the sun," Leonardo said, and his voice started to crack a little. "That sometimes you have to dance in the storm." Lucas jumped when he heard a very loud clap of thunder. Isabella turned up the star projector's level right away, making the room look like an ocean of soft light. "Look, Captain," she said in a low voice. "Even storms can be beautiful when seen from the right place." Lucas finally fell asleep. His breathing became steady and calm. Leonardo, on the other hand, did not move. He seemed to be afraid that any movement would disturb the fragile peace. He told Isabella in a soft voice, "You can go rest. I'll stay with him." "I know you will," she said as she carefully put the covers back in place. "But you don't have to be alone." Lucas's soft breathing and the sound of rain on the windows were the only sounds that could be heard after that. "Do you know what else Catherine told me that night?" After a long silence, Leonardo said something. She shook her head no. She said some people are like lights. They don't stop the storm, but they help us get through it. She knew what he was really saying and felt the weight of those words. He said, "Mr. Cortez." "Leonardo," I corrected. "After tonight, I think we can dispense with the formalities." With a small smile on her face, she nodded. "Leonardo," she said in a low voice. "Sometimes lighthouses need guidance too," he said. "That's why they work in pairs." When he looked at her, it was so intense that it made her heart jump. The storm outside began to calm down, but the one inside them was just starting to get stronger. Lucas woke up and muttered something about stars and seas. He had no idea that something important was happening around him. Leonardo and Isabella were sitting on opposite sides of the bed, and Lucas was sleeping happily in the middle. Margaret found them this way the next morning. They were brought together by their watch, plus something else. They both weren't ready to name it. Margaret softly told them, "Coffee's ready," noticing the dark circles under their eyes. "And the medical reports you requested have arrived, Mr. Cortez." He answered, "Thank you, Margaret," and kept his eyes on Isabella the whole time. "I need to cancel my meetings for today. I'm going to stay home." The helper left with a quiet smile on her face. She thought that some storms do more than damage. They bring new life. Not only was it very cold at the end of November, but there was also a clear change in how things worked at the Cortez house. Leonardo began to work from home more after the stormy night. He looked away from the financial reports a lot of the time to watch Lucas go to therapy or study with Isabella. Lucas was taking a nap after lunch one very cold afternoon when Leonardo found Isabella in the library putting together things for Lucas's school project. He shut the door behind him and said, "We need to talk." Isabella stood up straight when she heard how serious he sounded. Her question was, "About Lucas?" "About us." The word hung in the air between them, full of meaning they didn't say. Along with moving closer to the window, Leonardo said, "Richard learned more about Catherine's accident. The sabotage, it wasn't a competitor." She put the papers on the table and paid full attention to him. He said, "It was someone inside the company. Someone I trusted." Her voice was a little shaky. "We found out yesterday." Leonardo gave a nod. The former head of security, Maxwell Bennett, confessed everything to the police. She asked in a soft voice, "Why are you telling me this?" He turned around to face her. "Because I want you to know why I built all these walls. Why did I put up so many cameras? Why am I so scared to trust?" Then she added softly, "But you do trust." "Yes," he said, getting closer until he was just a few steps away from her. "But you took down every wall I put up. Because you are honest. How much you care about Lucas. A choking fit came through Lucas's baby monitor and broke up the moment. As soon as the sound stopped, they both moved naturally toward the door. The boy had gone back to sleep peacefully. "See," the little girl said with a smile, "not all interruptions are emergencies." Leonardo said, "You've changed everything," as if he had to say it before he lost it. "I love the way Lucas smiles now. How he talks about what will happen. How he finally gets to know his mother through your stories." Leonardo took a dry swallow. Catherine always said that real love doesn't just keep you safe, it sets you free. Before you came along, I didn't get that. Isabella moved away. "I work for your company. I take care of your son. We can't." He cut in and said, "Can't. Or won't." She wasn't ready for the question. "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because I have my own walls," she finally said. William was more than just a case I forgot about. He was my brother. There was an eerie silence after that. I took care of him for 3 years while he fought cystic fibrosis. I quit my job, my relationships, and my personal life. When he left, she took a big breath and spoke very quietly. I promised myself that I would never again allow myself to love someone I could lose. Leonardo filled the space between them and took her hands in his. So, we're two cowards. Two wounded protectors, she said, not trying to get away from his touch. He said, Lucas asked me something yesterday, and his thumb made light circles on her palm. He asked if it was wrong to be happy even though he missed his mother. Isabella could feel tears coming to her eyes. And what did you say? I said that Catherine would be furious if we thought honoring her memory meant living in sadness. At that time, the sound of footsteps in the hall made them quickly split up. Margaret walked in, but stopped quickly when she felt the tense air. Sorry to cut you off, Mr. Cortez. There's a line for the council. Leonardo just nodded, not wanting to break the moment. I'll be there in a minute. He looked at Isabella one last time after Margaret left. Have dinner with me tonight after Lucas goes to sleep. I don't think it's appropriate. Not as a boss and a worker, just like Leonardo and Isabella. For years, she had been trying to keep herself safe, which made her hesitant to say yes. And Lucas. Luke knows already. In fact, it was him who told me to. Stop being silly and invite you to dinner. Her mouth formed a smile that she couldn't stop. What did he say? In those exact words. He smiled, Leonardo. So, what do you say? Lucas's sleepy voice came through the monitor before she could answer. Dad, Isabella sighed, feeling better now that the thing was over. She mumbled, saved by the gong, and walked toward the door. Leonardo said, That's not a no. She said, It's not a yes either. She went up the stairs, but his smile followed her. It made her heart beat faster than it had in years. Lucas was sitting up in bed in his room, rubbing his tired eyes. He said quietly to her as she sat next to him, I dreamed about Mommy. She was smiling and said she was happy. Isabella could feel her heart beating fast. Is that so? Yes. She also said, To be happy, you have to be brave sometimes. She looked toward the door and saw Leonardo, standing there with his eyes, softly watching what was going on. Her voice was soft as she asked, You know something, Lucas? I think your mother was very wise. So, you're having dinner with Dad? The boy's understanding made Isabella laugh, which made her smile. Let's see. Let's finish up that whale job now. No, the dinner wasn't that night. It was a week later, when Boston got its first snow of the season. Everything was carefully planned by Leonardo. The table was set on the enclosed, heated veranda that was lit up with soft lights. The menu was hand-picked, and there was even a small jazz group playing in the background. Isabella got there right on time at 8 p.m., after putting Lucas to bed. She wore a simple navy blue dress that made her eyes shine like gems. Leo joked, I thought you said no. And he pulled out her chair. Her answer, technically, I never said no, was smiling. I just put it off until I was sure. Sure of what? That it wouldn't harm Lucas. Leonardo poured wine for both of them while moving slowly on purpose. And you came to a conclusion? Actually, it was Lucas who helped me decide. She took a small sip of wine and then pulled a folded piece of paper out of her pocket. Leonardo got the paper from her. There were 3 people holding hands under lots of stars. A 4th figure, surrounded by a golden glow, smiled down at the group from the top corner. He told me we're a family, she said in a soft voice. You, him, and me down here, and Catherine. Her voice got a little weak. Blessing us from above. Leonardo looked at the drawing with his eyes, shining for a long time. He has the same gift as his mother, he said quietly, for seeing beyond appearances. During dinner, they talked about a variety of topics, from lighter ones to more serious ones. They talked about their lives before they met, including William and Catherine, as well as their fears and new hopes. Do you know what I miss most about Catherine? This is what Leonardo asked as they ate pie. Being able to find beauty in everything, Isabella thought. even in storms. Like Lucas, Leonardo answered. His look became softer. Like you two. He reached across the table and grabbed her hand. You made our lives more colorful again. Do you know that? Before she could answer, she heard Lucas's monitor make a sound she knew. Coughing and then soft cries. Isabella got up and said, I'll check on him. Leonardo took her hand in a gentle way. Let me go. Stay put and enjoy the wine. Lucas went into his room and saw his son sitting up in bed, tears running down his face. Lionel said, Hey, champ, sitting next to him. Nightmare. He shook his head. Fear of what? Of Isabella leaving, he said silently. Like Mom. Leonardo felt his heart pound. He put an arm around Lucas and pulled him close. He said in a soft voice, Lucas, look at me. Your mom never meant to leave us. And Isabella is not leaving. Promise. Heaved a sigh. Son, I can't tell you what will happen in the future. I will do everything I can to keep her in our lives, though. Is that good enough? Lucas said yes and climbed into his dad's arms. Dad, yeah, do you still love Mom? He kissed his son on the top of the head. He said in a soft voice, I'll always love your mother. She gave me you, the greatest gift of my life. Lucas was unsure. Okay, does it mean I can love Isabella too? I saw Leonardo smile. Yes, son, there's always room for love in the heart. He went back to the balcony and saw Isabella holding his coat while she looked at the falling snow. She asked, Is Lucas all right? Yes, he replied as he moved toward her. He just needed some answers. And did you get them? Leonardo grabbed the jacket from her and threw it over his shoulders. Actually, he stated, I think we all got some answers today. Isabella turned around to face him, and the soft lights on the balcony caught in her eyes. Leonardo, he stopped her and said, Don't say anything yet. Just dance with me. As they rocked together to soft music, the snow outside made a background that seemed almost magical. When Isabella whispered on his shoulder, Catherine would be proud, she said. Of what? Of seeing you and Lucas live, she told him. Not just surviving. Leonardo took a small step back and looked into her eyes. That's thanks to you. No, Isabella said as she looked at the picture on the table that Lucas had made. It's thanks to the three of us. She laughed. And to her, too. Outside, the snow kept coming down. As the balcony got warmer, though, something new began to grow. It wasn't just love. They also understood each other. It became clear that sometimes the biggest blessings often come in the form of problems. That all hearts, even broken ones, have the power to heal and grow again. Isabella. Yes. Thank you, Leonardo said in a low voice, for teaching us to dance in the storm. She smiled as she thought about the stories about Catherine. She replied in a whisper, Thank you for teaching me how to love again. Some towers can be homes. As spring came around, the Cortez house had its first big test. Lucas got an infection that kept him in the hospital for 3 days. This made Leonardo and Isabella very careful all the time. At the hospital, they started to lose their carefully kept calm. Leonardo went back and forth between frantic calls to doctors and painful quiet, while Isabella stayed by Lucas's bedside nonstop. On the third night, Leonardo told her, You need to rest, as he found her sleeping in an awkward position in the armchair. I'm fine, she said as she stood up straight. I'd rather stay here. Why? She thought about answering for a moment. That's how I lost William. I chose to go home and rest one night. When I got back in the morning, she was pulled into his arms as he quickly crossed the room. For them, it was their first public display of love, but at that time, only being with each other made things better. It was not William, she said in his ear, and you're not alone this time. Lucas watched with his eyes half closed and gave a weak smile. He said in a low voice, You two look like a movie couple. They moved apart when they saw that he was awake. How are you feeling, Captain? Isabella asked, quickly getting back to her business self. Hungry, he said. Can I have something besides that transparent stuff? The four was shown by him. Leonardo laughed, which was the first real sound of happiness in days. I'll see what the doctors allow. Lucas took a close look at Isabella when they were alone. You love my father, don't you? She wasn't ready for the straight question. Lucas, it's okay, he said next. Yesterday, Mom showed up in my dream. Your heart is as big as the ocean, she told me. Isabella could feel tears coming to her eyes. Your father and you are very special to me. Then why do you still pretend you're just our babysitter? His knowledge scared her at times. It's complicated, darling. No, it's not, he would not admit. Trying to figure out why humpback whales sing is hard. It's easy to love. You need to just let it happen. Leonardo came back with the doctor before she could answer. Lucas's illness was getting better. His test results showed that he had gotten much better, and he could go home the next day. And that night, Lucas slept well for the first time in days. In the hospital cafeteria, Leonardo met Isabella. He sat down next to her and said, "The doctors say your dedication was crucial. The way you kept up with the respiratory physiotherapy, even during his high fever. I just did my job." No. He put his hand on the table and took hers. You did a lot more than that. You fought like hell for him, he wasn't sure. Like a mother would. The words were heavy with meaning and hung between them. Leonardo, marry me. She wasn't at all ready for the request. What? Marry me, he said again, this time kneeling next to her. Leonardo kept talking, ignoring the other people in the cafe's strange looks. Not because Lucas needs a mother or because I'm lonely, but because you made our house a home. Because you showed me that I can love deeply twice in my life, in two different but still true ways. But what about your fear of losing again? She asked Isabella. As he said, I'm still afraid. I most likely always will be. Remember that Catherine taught me how to dance in the rain? You taught me that some dances are worth taking a chance on. Isabella had tears running down her face as she looked down at their hands that were tangled together. Does Lucas know about this? I saw Leonardo smile. Actually, he was the one who chose the ring. He pulled out a small box from his pocket and opened it to show a pretty sapphire ring with tiny diamond stars all around it. He said it had to be blue, like the ocean, because that's where you feel at home, he said. And the stars are to remind us that we always have light, even on the darkest nights. How long have you been planning this? Since that night on the balcony, he said, but I wanted to wait for the right moment. After a short pause, he said, but after these last few days, I've come to realize that there is no perfect moment. Every moment is unique, and it's up to us to make the most of them. Isabella first looked at the ring and then at Leonardo, who was on his knees in front of her. She thought about all the walls she had put up after William died. She thought of Lucas and how wise he seemed to be. He had told her that love was simple. She thought of Catherine and wished them well in their dreams. Yes, she said in a low voice. Then she laughed happily and said, yes. Yes, I will marry you. As he put the ring on her finger, Leonardo's smile lit up the whole cafe. A quiet round of applause could be heard all over the room. I believe we have a crowd, she whispered, blushing. Let them see, he said, kissing her softly. Some stories deserve witnesses. The engagement news spread very quickly. When they got home from the hospital, Margaret was the first person to notice the ring on Isabella's finger. She smiled like she knew this was going to happen, which showed that she did. Boston's upper class were talking about Isabella's change from Nanny to Leonardo Cortez's legal fiancé. Several tabloids tried to make up shocking stories about the couple, but the respect with which they dealt with the situation and their dedication to Lucas's well-being quickly shut them up. Leonardo found Isabella in Catherine's old bedroom one very important morning. The room hadn't been used in years. She looked at the pictures on the walls. His question was soft. Are you sure you want to do this today? And she softly touched a picture of Catherine happy and pregnant in front of the ocean. Lucas deserves to know more about his mother, she said. And I need to get to know her too. He walked up to her and gave her a hug behind the back. They stood there in silence, thinking about the memories that had been frozen in time. She would have liked you, he said in a low voice. How can you be sure? She asked Isabella. Because you have the same spark, Leonardo answered with confidence in his voice. That same sparkle in your eyes when you talk about making a difference in other people's lives. He stopped and took a deep breath. Catherine always said that our purpose in life is to leave the world a little better than we found it. At that very moment, Lucas slowly walked through the opening. May I come in? Of course, my love, Isabella said, extending her hand to him. The boy slowly made his way toward her, his green eyes, which looked a lot like his mother's, taking in everything in the room. She liked to collect shells, Leonardo said, pointing to a shelf full of fragile specimens. Everyone told a story. Like this one. Lucas took a soft pink shell in his hand and ran his fingers along its edges. He was interested and asked, "This one?" Leonardo smiled as he thought about it. Ever since she felt you move for the first time. She said you were dancing. Inside her, to the sound of the waves, while we were on the beach in Numbers. Isabella was filled with love and respect for the woman who had been such an important part of their lives as she watched the father and son talk. Can we keep some of her things in my room?" Lucas was shy and asked. "Of course we can," Leonardo said with a smile. "Actually, I was thinking of turning this room into something special." "Like what?" Lucas and Isabella both asked at the same time. "A memorial," Leonardo said with some thought. "A place where we can come whenever we want to feel her presence, with photos, her shells, her favorite books." Lucas said, "And we could add new things as well. Like pictures of us, so she can see, look how happy we are." He could feel tears coming to his eyes. "That's a perfect idea, son." That afternoon, the three of them worked together to change the layout of the room. They didn't do this to hide Catherine's presence, but to honor her in a new way. Isabella found a notebook tucked away among her books while she was going through her things. When Leonardo told her she could, she opened it and started to read. Lucas was told by Isabella in a soft voice, "She wrote about you every day while she was pregnant. Look at this. My little sailor has decided that 3 a.m. is the best time to be swimming today. He says he'll be an Olympian, but I think he'll be an ocean traveler." Lucas was amused. She was right. I enjoy the sea. As they looked through the pictures, they came across one that really touched them. Catherine dancing in the rain with her face to the sky, beaming with happiness. Leonardo said, "This was on our wedding day. It started raining during the reception, and instead of getting upset, she pulled everyone outside to dance in the garden." Isabella smiled as she thought about the scene. "She really knew how to turn ordinary moments into extraordinary ones," she told me. "Like you," Lucas said as he hugged her. Leonardo found Isabella on the balcony that night, looking up at the stars after Lucas had gone to sleep. He put his arms around her and asked, "What are you thinking about?" "About how love comes in many forms," she said in a low voice. "About how it's possible to honor the past while building the future." Leonardo held her close and felt the ring on her finger as they were tangled together. "Do you know what Catherine wrote in her last diary entry?" he asked me. She shook her head no. "Real love doesn't need to own you. If you think about the ocean, it has enough room for all the currents, waves, and people who go through it," Isabella said in a low voice. She was very wise. "Yes, she was," Leonardo agreed. "And I'd like to think she'd be happy to see us find our own tide." Lucas asked to see the picture album one more time that night before going to bed. He put a picture of his new family, with Catherine's golden glow in the sky above them, on the last page, with great care. He was happy and said, "Now it's finished." Isabella and Leonardo looked at each other with deep feelings. Yes, it was complete, not because they had found what they had lost, but because they knew that love can make new places without taking away from the old ones. She smiled to herself because she was glad to see that her family had not only found comfort, but also a new kind of happiness. The morning of the wedding day was especially clear. The house at Cortez had been turned into a stunning scene that mixed luxury and closeness. The event would happen in the winter garden, which had blue and white flowers that made it look like the seabed was lit up. Isabella was getting ready in her old bedroom, which had been turned into a wedding suite for the time being. Margaret worried over the last details of her dress, which was a simple ivory dress with small details that looked like soft waves. "Something is missing," Margaret said as she carefully adjusted the cover. Lucas walked into the room at that very moment, looking very sharp in his little tuxedo. He held an old box in his hands. "Dad asked me to give you this," he told Isabella as he held out the package. There was a pearl necklace and a note written by hand inside. The letter said, "Dear Isabella, Catherine wore these pearls to our wedding." Isabella opened the letter and, "Read it." She said they were unique because they're made over time, with patience and through hard times, just like real love. They are now yours, not to replace memories, but to make new ones. With love. Leonardo. Isabella's eyes filled with tears that were about to ruin her makeup. Margaret quickly stepped in and offered her a tissue. She said, "Let me help you with the necklace," and her voice was shaking with emotion. Lucas paid close attention as Margaret put the pearls around Isabella's neck. He said in a whisper, "You look beautiful. You look like a mermaid." Isabella got on her knees, being careful not to wrinkle her dress, and gently cupped Lucas's face. "And you, my love, look like a real prince." He asked in a whisper, "Can I tell you a secret?" "Of course. I dreamed about Mom yesterday." "Really?" Isabella had a soft question. "And what did she say?" He said, "That she's happy. Because now she's sure she'll never be alone. And she asked me to say thank you for looking after Dad's heart," he said after a moment of thought. Leonardo stood in the winter yard, tense and waiting. The judge was already there, and the few chosen guests were sitting down. Soft music started to play. It wasn't the usual wedding march, but a tune that made me think of the ocean, like whales singing far away. Lucas walked in first with the wedding rings in his hand. Then Isabella showed up and took away all of their breath. When Leonardo saw the pearl necklace around her neck, his heart stopped for a second. It seemed like Catherine was there, approving of their marriage. "We are gathered here today," he said, "not only to celebrate a union, but to honor the journey that has brought these souls to this moment." At the vows, every person in the garden choked up. He took a deep breath and started. "Isabella," she spoke with a little shaking in her voice, "I promise to love you and to honor the story that brought you to me. I promise to keep you and Lucas safe. When life gets hard, I promise to dance in the rain, and I promise to never forget the love that came before me." He took a deep breath and then began to say his vows. "As Isabella taught me, the heart can love everything in the world. Because you are strong and kind, I promise to enjoy all of that about you. Together with Lucas, we will make a future full of stars and waves. I promise to always keep in mind that some storms come in the form of blessings, and true love has no time or space bounds." After that, Lucas's turn to give the rings came, but he didn't just pass them. Instead, he shocked everyone with words from the heart. "I promise to be the best son to both of you," he said with teary eyes and a young voice, "and to keep all the love in my heart, the love that is here and the love that protects us from above." A light drizzle started to fall while the reception was going on in the main yard. The bride and groom didn't run for cover. Instead, they smiled at each other. Leo put out his hand to Isabella and said, "I think someone wants us to dance in the rain." As the band began to play a soft version of La Mer, everyone in the room started dancing in the light rain. Lucas danced among the adults, and his loud, clear laughing mixed with the music. As the party wound down, the three of them stood on the balcony and watched the rainbow go across the sky. "Look," Lucas shouted and pointed up. "7 colors, like the 7 colors of love." "7 colors of love?" Isabella was interested and asked. "Yes," Lucas answered with a big smile. "Red means Mom's love, which is still here. Orange shows how much our dad loves us. Yellow means I love you. Green is what nature loves. Olivia, blue is your love. Blue is the color of love that's coming. And pink." He smiled in a strange way. "That's the love we don't know yet." Leonardo and Isabella looked at each other with deep feelings. Somehow, this child had wonderfully shown how deeply and complicatedly they felt. "You know what?" "Squeeze together," Leonardo said, pulling them both close. I think I finally understand what Catherine meant about dancing in the rain. What do you mean? She asked Isabella. That life should sometimes surprise us. That the best times happen when we least expect them. That love, real love, shows up in many different ways. As night fell softly over the Cortez house, it was no longer a place of shadows and sadness, but a place where different kinds of love could live together in peace. A light breeze moved the curtains in Catherine's memorial room, making the shells hanging in the window chime softly. It was like a final gift for the family, who had learned that love lasts forever in all its forms. Did this story touch your heart? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale of 0 to 10, how powerful was this tale? Smash that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon so you never miss a story that stirs your soul. For more heart-racing, emotional tales, tap the end screen now.